Welcome to this episode of Uncomfortable Conversations. I'm your host, Michaela Richards, and today we're diving into a pressing issue that touches lives across our community: water safety and the legacy of Atlanta's segregated swimming pools. So let's talk about it. Joining us today is Spencer Stelgis from the Red Cross, father and community advocate Shivy Brooks, and Chip Moody, a photographer who's been documenting the evolution of water access in Metro Atlanta. So this is for everyone. How would you describe water safety?
Well, I think it's important to establish right off the bat that unfortunately between the ages of 1 and 4, water safety and the lack of that safety leads to that age group being the highest chance of drowning victims within the United States. And outside of that, from age 5 to 14, you're also looking at unintentional injury that leads to death. So really when it comes to water safety, we want people to be water smart. We want to ensure that people are safe in, on, and around the water.
This is a primary issue. It's not a secondary issue. In the same way we view walking as being one of those first things a child necessarily has to learn to do, swimming is right up there. Because in the same way you can look at a road or a walkway and you don't think, I can't go over there. You know, you have feet. You know, if you're able, walking doesn't present a challenge to where it is you're allowed to go. When you travel, you realize there's a lot of water out there. And being so sort of blessed, privileged to have learned to swim at a very young age, I didn't realize how much fear gets taken away from you when you know that you can swim. In the same way you go to a big park and you don't think, oh, I'm afraid of walking over there.
Right.
When you travel and you see that there's water everywhere, when you know how to swim, it's just not really an issue. When you have access, when you have education, safety is a byproduct of that. When you know what you're doing, when you're able to produce and practice the thing, build community around it, these are really the points that allow for safety to manifest, you know, particularly when we're talking about communities.
You know, swim safety also has cultural relevance. One of the unfortunate facts of the Black experience in America is that, you know, less than 80% of Black Americans are unable to swim, more than 80%. And so we're talking about a life skill that many times is, you know, either a consequence or a blessing given your circumstances. We're seeing the outcomes of not having equal opportunity to access pools, or just culturally looking at the recreational act of swimming as something that maybe is just a seasonal thing and not the life skill that it truly is.
The CDC released new data last month saying that drowning rates have increased nearly 13%. What is the state of water education in Atlanta right now?
With over 100 years of training, we're concerned about water safety. We're concerned about drowning victims. And so when we see stats like 64% of Black children do not have or have few lessons. With brown children, it is at 45%. And then you add on top of that 1.5 times likely a Black child has to drown is abysmal. So our focus is entrenched on making sure that we get that education out into the public.
In that same study, it does say more than half of adults have never had a swimming lesson.
Yeah.
Going even further, the majority of Black children have never had a lesson at all.
There are many cultural reasons that have to be talked about plainly and courageously. You know, not until within the last 5-7 years have we started to see an amassing of product offerings for Black hair and swimming, where you have swim caps that accommodate for, you know, our protective styles, etc. Some of those things being a major barrier to even the desire to swim. They deserve a conversation as to how we perceive the act of swimming and the importance of it. And I think, unfortunately, until we experience traumas or losses in our community because of the lack of knowledge, does it become a more perpetual conversation. Not until my adulthood did I unfortunately experience losing my son to a drowning incident, and in which he lost his life in the act of trying to save other kids who unfortunately were being placed in danger while in the water. How it is not a choice or a luxury or something for just a privileged or well-accessed few to be doing, but that this is something we have to know how to do, because we can't foresee how the cards may be dealt with for us in our own lives. So this is something that I think we have to have a primary emphasis on, and we've been doing that work with our Bryce Brooks Foundation in honor of our son. We're trying to give access to high schoolers to get their lifeguard certification, but more importantly to increase the desire of within our community to go into that line of work and service for the community.
And I feel like that really leads into Chip's work. Chip, through your lens, you've captured the legacy of segregated swimming pools in Atlanta. How do you think this history has shaped our current landscape of water access and safety?
My work, the project that I made about Atlanta's original 12 segregated pools, was an exploration for me. I'm not from Atlanta. I come from Chicago, which has a beach that spans the entire length of the city from north to south. So I don't know anything about public pools. And I was actually very afraid to sort of start that research because I had no idea what I was going to find. And moving to the South was very different. Culturally, the South has history, it has its own mythology, it has its own culture. And so wanting to be respectful of that and not just decide what the narrative was going to be, I took my time and sought to really find, okay, well, what are these pools? Where are they? I won't make any narrative. I'll just find them and see what's there. And I was so pleasantly surprised that even though the city at that time, this was in the 60s, had 12 pools, 9 white pools and 3 black pools that were segregated, my thoughts were that, well, maybe the black pools don't exist anymore and the white pools are private and you can't have access to them. All 12 of those original chartered pools are there and are available, and you can go to them and they're well kept. Some of them feel maybe like too well kept, like we need to use them more probably. You know, speaking to the cultural barriers where it's like you can have something there and have access to it, but that doesn't mean you're going to use it, right? I think it's a celebration that in a city that has become as black as Atlanta is, there are pools all over the city. But then now as you go across the city, you'll see that there are pools in almost every neighborhood, right? Not just the old ones, not just the traditional ones, and you can draw out a map and see and find them that there's most likely a pool in your community. I think building excitement around these things, building a necessary culture around these things could help to increase that education and also that safety. You know, growing up by a large body of water, you don't think anything of going to it. It's like, let's go to the lake. You just go walk there, right? It's there. But people should have access to water the same way we should have access to green space. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be a thing going to the pool, going to participate in water the same way it's not a thing to just go outside and sit in the grass or be by a tree.
Shivy, what changes would you like to see in local water safety policies or community programs to prevent such tragedies from happening to families?
From the perspective of, being a seated Atlanta Public School Board member, I think about our opportunities to collaborate with the city around our pools to get our neighborhood kids not only in the pool for recreational time, but also in the pool with instruction. We do have a partnership with APS in the city of Atlanta that does allow for teens to achieve their lifeguard certification free of charge. And, unfortunately, we've experienced in our city, due to the underutilization that you aforementioned, some of our pools are not able to be open as many hours as we have available to the community. Many of our pools are not staffed at the levels that they should be. And I think, there has to be a real gut check conversation about what are we doing to build excitement about these spaces within our community, to bridge the gaps, and to get our kids, wanting and desiring to be in the water. This has to be seen completely as a public safety issue. It has to be seen as an intentional effort to save lives of our children for generations to come.
I know last year there was a lot of talks about lifeguard shortages. Are we still in that boat this year around?
Yeah. Lifeguard shortages are still a thing, and one of the things that I would encourage us statewide and nationwide is to really think about a lot of our public pools, because regardless of the trainings and the things that we learn, there are sometimes things that go beyond us, the force of Mother Nature, if you will, riptide awareness, etc. Because we can have all the training and know all of the things, but if we're landlocked dwellers and city livers like us, and we're out at the shore, it may be very different circumstances than what we might be accustomed to. And so all the training in the world wouldn't be able to save us on that day. I think it's important for us to look at, lifeguard policies and whether or not there's a mandate for lifeguards at some of our public pools. In Florida, where my son lost his life, there is no mandate for lifeguards on public pools at all. They rely on fire rescue to retrieve folks, and unfortunately their response time is 6 minutes. It takes 4 minutes to lose your life in the water. So when we look at whether or not we're actually looking to save lives or just retrieve people, especially in our open water, I think that's a real big initiative, but that's going to take a statewide push.
And then wrapping up a little bit, I mean, you guys have already kind of touched on it this entire time, but what in your perfect world would you like to see?
Kids go out to enjoy water and come home safely. I think ultimately the goal is to prevent the loss of life, but also improve the quality of life all at the same time. And I think that's the consequence of us being successful in all of our efforts.
Access to water increases our quality of life. The same way we participate in other things that we think are normal or don't even think about, it would be wonderful to have spaces, to have communities that don't have a second thought about whether their community is safe in these spaces, or if they have access to these spaces, or if their people are able to participate, right? It's like one of the worst feelings is having to go somewhere and not feeling safe, right? Not feeling like your family is safe. And that was something that I know my family really fought for. They're like, you are not going to be one of these kids who goes to the beach, goes to the pool, and you don't feel like you belong, or that you can't be there, or that you're not safe. And it took a concerted effort to sort of do that, but it can be done. It just really depends on communities focusing on themselves and having the resources to provide and take care of themselves in that capacity.
It is people of all walks of life being able to find a place to have fun.
No, thank you. Is there anything else that you guys like to add to this conversation we haven't touched on?
Thank you so much for elevating the conversation. I think we're not doing enough just as a community at large to highlight water safety and have these conversations. So I'm just grateful that you all are taking the time to make this a primary initiative. It really does make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you all for your invaluable contributions to this important and sometimes uncomfortable conversation. These tips and experiences can help save a life. For more information on how you can do your part, visit our website, 11alive.com. And for more content like this, explore our streaming app, 11 Alive Plus. We look forward to continuing this conversation online. I'm your host, Michaela Richards. Stay safe this summer.